and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Welcome back, guys. Tonight I am joined by a fellow rugby player. You guys, I'm telling you, I've told you this a million times on this podcast, but every fucking cool person that I know plays rugby. So if you don't play rugby, it's time for you to join. I am joined by Melissa Smits. She is a constable and investigator with RCMP K Division Major Crimes North Unit. She's been with the RCMP for 15 and a half years, and she's been with Major Crimes for 6 years, and she's been playing rugby for over 20 years. She's originally an East Coaster, and as if she's not busy enough, she is also the fundraising director for Ned's Wish. I'm just going to leave it there. I don't want to do any spoilers. I want her to tell you all about this amazing organization. But first of all, welcome, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
You've been with the RCMP for 15 and a half years,
I
long
have.
time, and with Major Crimes for 6. So, like a good chunk of your career. Busy. Obviously, it's been probably a pretty chaotic year. There's been a whole lot of shit
Yeah.
going down in Alberta. But tell me, like, how did you get into this? You're coming from the East Coast. Was it something you always wanted to do? What kind of led you into this career in law enforcement?
Yeah, I think it is kind of something I always wanted to do. I remember when I was a kid, I sort of always had these dreams. Oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I kind of had like a whole um, bunch of them that I wanted to do. And I thought at the time when I was, 4, that I could do all of these together. So I was going to be a rock star, and I was going to be a veterinarian, and I was going to be a police officer, and I was going to do all of these things on the same day. So it was great. But eventually, I settled on just police officer. I kind of went through the university thing, and I didn't finish, and was sort of like just kind of floating around trying to decide, okay, where's my place? What am I going to do? And then a friend was going to be applying to the RCMP, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely something I could see myself doing. So I started kind of working towards that. At the time, I kind of just moved up to Edmonton. I was just looking for volunteer opportunities and kind of steady jobs so that I could have like the same job for the last couple of years before I applied. And then I applied, threw in my application, and the rest is history. So
It's so crazy. So, how old were you when you applied then?
I was 26, so I was a little older. Like I definitely went through a couple of years of university, and I was working, and I was playing rugby, and I was just didn't really know what I necessarily wanted to do right away. Policing is something that had always like appealed to me, but I think it took me some time to kind of really cement that decision and just decide to go for it. So um,
I think it's so cool too that you like made the conscious decision. I'm going to stay in a single job for a couple of years before I apply,
mhm.
because it's a great kind of a segue into something that I forgot to mention in our intro is that you're also a rugby player with the World Police Fire Games team who won the silver medal last year, and
Yeah, yeah,
Mary Ave, who was in season 6, that's part of her when she was getting into the RCMP because she had played rugby all over the world and had
mhm.
bounced around and had 8 million different addresses and different backgrounds and things that they had to her that's what her application process took so long because there were so many things that they had to dig back through. And so it's
Yeah.
interesting that you would do like consciously choose like I need to be in one place. I want to have a steady work history. I want to have it be in one location before I apply. That's very smart of you to do that. So very cool. And so at 26, kind of going to depot, you're going in probably a little bit more life prepared than maybe some of your other troop mates. How was that for you?
It was a lot of fun. We got really lucky in our troop. We gelled, just clicked right away. That wasn't necessarily the case. And in fact, I was supposed to be in a different troop. They called me. I think I was 25 when I went in, but I was 26 when I graduated. So I went in like December of 2008. And when they originally called me to tell me that I was going to go, they were like, oh, you're going to be in, I want to say it was like troop 42A or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was the troop that got there like after the week after we got there, because I was with troop 41, and they got stuck kind of on the same floor as us in C block. We had all of our own rooms. There were like 11 girls in our troop, and we had all of our own rooms, our own bathrooms, everything, which is not very typical when you're going to training. Usually you get stuck in B block where you're all together. at the time anyway, that was kind of the case. So the girls in the troop that I was supposed to be in were like 3/4 to a room, and they just had major issues the entire time they were in there, just because they were getting on each other's nerves. Everything's really stressful. So yeah, I felt really lucky because I was like, hey, is there any way you can get me in any earlier? I really don't want to be just hanging out here, like the extra week.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh, actually, I think I can probably slide you into to whatever. And so I got to go Troop 41, and we were all really good friends right away and kind of stayed that way all through training. And I still keep in touch with a lot of my troop mates now. So it was kind of a special experience, which is funny because it's in Regina and ain't nobody like Regina.
Were you there in the summer or the winter?
No, we were there in the winter. Yeah, we started
Yeah.
in December and then kind of went through the spring. And it was when it finally started to get nice and all of that, we got kicked out and sent to our posts. But it was kind of terrible over the winter, like -55 forming up inside. And
Oh.
yeah, definitely. It was really good for pepper spray though, to get that
Yes.
nice cold wind in your face. Like
Yeah.
that was, yeah, we had to watch some poor suckers get sprayed in the 30-degree heat there once the nice weather came, and they had a day of it.
No, no, tag me out. I do not want any part of that. No, thank you. Oh my gosh. And so then where was your first post?
So I went up to Pelican Narrows in Saskatchewan, and when I tell you I really had no earthly idea where the hell I was going, I really had no idea. I mean, keep in mind, I grew up in Prince Edward Island. It's rainbows and butterflies, everywhere, and PEI all the time. I shouldn't say, well, I was in Nova Scotia for a little while as well, kind of all over the Maritimes, but it's really quite nice back home, back east. And then I went from there to New Brunswick. I went to university in Fredericton, and then of course was in Edmonton. So all of the places that I had been fairly populated areas. Like PEI is kind of small, but it's nice and it's whatever. Pelican Narrows is kind of up in the middle of nowhere. It's a limited duration post. I never really had any experience with reserves before, and of course, reserve policing, northern style policing, is really very different than policing in other types of communities. So when I got there, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? There aren't even any paved roads here. Yeah, but it definitely ended up being a really, really positive experience. Again, we had a really great team up there. My trainer was great. We had a really good group up there, a really good crew, and a lot of good work. And the community was really, really neat.
So where is it? Because I like have no idea.
So it's probably about 4 hours north of Prince Albert in Saskatchewan. It's right on like it's about an hour and a half away from like Creighton Flin Flon. So it's like right on the northeast side of Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow. And so how many were in your detachment?
Oh God, how many did we have? 13 or 14, somewhere around there.
Oh. So
It
it
was
wasn't
actually like it's a big enough detachment. We'd always have, just because it was busy, right? So like it
yeah.
was definitely one of those busy detachments. Both of my northern posts were quite busy. So you always had to have at least two people on, and usually for night shifts you'd have a couple of cars on, right? So you'd have like, 3, 4 people on depending on the night.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was great. And the community was pretty good too. So yeah, I don't think I would have gotten as much experience as I did had I gone to someplace else. So I was pretty happy to go to a good busy place that I was going to get a good mix of work at. And actually that's where I first became interested in major crime, because my second month in, all of the senior officers were out of town. I think our sergeant had come back very, very late the night before. Everybody else was out for like courses and everything else, and we got a homicide in the morning.
Oh
And I
God.
responded to it. I responded to it 2 months in with my partner, who was a 5-year member, so he wasn't inexperienced, but he hadn't really done a lot of that stuff at the time. And so I still remember we got the call. We were dealing with something else when we get the call. By the time we get to the scene where this kid is down, he's already gone to the health center. So we get there, we figure out, okay, he's deceased. We have a homicide. And I was like, oh crap, now what do I do? So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. So I got everything in place. I called my sergeant. I was like, we need to call people in. This is what's happened. And my sergeant later told me that he started crapping his pants because he's like, all of my officers are out of town. What the hell are we gonna do? I've
Yeah.
got a I got a bunch of recruits and this one 5-year member. Yeah, anyway, we figured it out. Very, very shortly after that, we had everybody called in and we had everything tied up. My partner and I actually got some information about where the responsible parties were. And so we were able to go and make some arrests and have everything all wrapped up by the time Major Crimes got there. So it was just such a cool and interesting file. I mean, obviously tragic and all of that as well, but just a very interesting and intricate investigation. It was really my first exposure to all of that. So I was like, this is what I want to do. And then kind of they made me the exhibit person. So then I got to kind of shadow all of the Major Crimes guys and go to the autopsy and do all that stuff. And I was like, this is just a cool job. Like I can definitely see myself doing this. And kind of from that point on, started just pointing my brain toward that. Like, what do I need to get into this section?
So what's an exhibit person? I'm assuming like my knowledge of what it is, but what are your actual responsibilities?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season, and I'd just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows, so no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure that you get that chance to win that gift certificate.
So with a major crimes investigation, or a homicide would be considered a major crimes investigation, everything is done by major case management. So what that means is that everybody has different roles in the investigation. You have a command triangle that's going to kind of, run the investigation to your primary investigator, your team commander, your file coordinator, and then you're going to have your task chasing teams. So for example, interview teams, typically you'll have two people. One person will take the interview, the other person will monitor, and then you just switch back and forth. You'll have a crime scene manager. You'll have an exhibit person that kind of goes with that crime scene manager, and then they hook up with FIS, our forensic identification section.
Which is Sandra.
That is Sandra. I was just going to say our shared friend, Sandra.
Yes.
And so essentially the exhibit person goes with the crime scene and FIS people, and they are responsible for seizing all of the exhibits. So that person will seize all of the exhibits. They'll secure all of the exhibits. They'll be responsible for all exhibit movements, and that's kind of done in conjunction with the team. So they'll decide what needs to go away for testing. They'll send in all of their lab requisitions, get their permission and all of that, and then just kind of tell you what to send where. But it just kind of makes it a little bit cleaner come court time, because you've got one person who's responsible for touching and moving and doing all of the exhibit stuff, right?
I was going to say that's a huge responsibility, that job, because that's all chain of custody. Like if there's a break anywhere there, that can be the make or break of the case. Like that can literally blow it up if you don't have proof that it was within one person's hands the whole way through. I know working at the jail before we had, like major incidents. I mean, we always had major incidents, but as things had progressed in the jail, that started to come down to us too, to filter down. Was like, no, you found the shank that murdered that inmate. Like we need to, like, if you got it, you bagged it, you hold it, it doesn't go anywhere, it's with you, you're the person. Or if you found that big stash of drugs, you're bagging it, you're holding it, you're waiting, right? So we definitely kind of gleaned information off of our police partners, and we're like, tell us what we're supposed to be doing, because we'd never been trained in that, right? We'd never been trained in like scene management or anything like that. And then all of a sudden it started to get, things are starting to get bigger and bigger, and now these things that are happening inside the jail are actually going to criminal, they're getting charged with homicide, they're getting charged with mass drug trafficking, and it's like, oh God, like we need to do this like by the book, or this is going to get thrown out. Like teach us what we need to know. So yeah, that's really cool. And so then your first post, how long were you at your first post for?
So they were both of my northern posts were 2-year limited duration posts. So I was there a little over 2 years, but essentially once your 2 years is up, you're usually in the middle of a transfer. So I transferred out the second summer out. So it was like 2 years and a couple months or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I went to La Loche, which is on the other side of the province,
Yeah.
northwest, and a little bit further north, and definitely yeah, it was definitely a busier detachment area, a little bit of a different makeup in the team, but we still had a lot of fun. Again, you had 3, 4 trucks bombing around at night, and you're just going to the craziest calls, right? Like, I think they had 3 bars in the same kind of area on the one like main drag, and there'd just always be fights, and then you'd be getting called away to stabbings, and yeah, it was nuts. It was crazy. So
A tons of experience though. Again, like this is what I
again,
hear
yeah.
from. I hear it from all of my RCMP guests, all of the people that I've talked to that have come from the RCMP said like, if you want experience, like it's the place to go because you're getting put out in these areas, rural areas, not necessarily going straight to a major city right off your first, coming out of depot. And it's like, all right, let's get our feet wet. Let's jump into this. Let's go and let's deal with all this stuff. So, I mean, yeah, if you're looking for a career where you're going to learn a heck of a lot in the first couple of years, RCMP is where to go. And
Yeah,
so
100%.
from there, then, so now you're at about 4 years in. So then did you hit another post or was that like when you were like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going for major crimes. I'm going to start getting those secondments and things like that?
Yeah, so with major crimes, like it's kind of, you really should be pretty well rounded already by the time that you get there. It's pretty rare that you're going to go directly from GD into major crime. So I was lucky enough, I had the same staff sergeant in both of my general duty posts in Pelican and then in La Loche. And he knew my work from Pelican, he knew my work in La Loche, and he knew that I had this interest in major crimes. So he supported me, even though I was pretty junior in service, to go on the major crimes mentorship that Saskatchewan had. So basically, I got seconded down there. They do it a little bit better, honestly, in Alberta than they used to in F Division at the time in Saskatchewan. But I basically got seconded to their unit for a month, and I had to go basically just sit in their office and be a part of the unit and get called out to go do whatever. So we only got, I think, two, no, well, there was one homicide that was there that I deployed to when I was there. But they had one just before I started that I assisted with and helped them do a bunch of interviews for. Now in K, when they do that, they kind of attach a couple of mentees to your team for like a much longer period. They don't come and like sit in our office, but they come and they deploy with us when we get called out. So they get exposed to a lot more that way, than hoping you get a busy month if you go down to the office, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was still a really, really neat experience. You got exposure to a file from start to finish, in a bit of a different way, got a bit more interviewing experience, briefing experience, all of that kind of stuff. And then started talking to staffing when it was time to leave. And they didn't really have at the time, my partner was also a police officer. I'm single now, but at the time I was with him. And so when they were looking at moving us, they also had to find a place for him. And so they're like, yeah, like Saskatoon Major Crimes has already said that they want you, but we don't really have a place for him. And how, would you consider Prince Albert? And I knew that there was a good GIS section there. And I knew that there was a couple of drug sections there. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, the name of the game is to be well-rounded and to have more experience by the time I get to MCU. I can do that in a myriad of different ways. Like, never did I just expect to go to MCU straight from GD.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up putting me in a drug unit. They didn't have a spot open in GIS at the time. And GIS is kind of like the training ground, if you will, for major crimes, because we do, you're kind of the jack of all trades in GIS. You do all kinds of different investigations. They're definitely higher level investigations. That's typically where you're going to start to get all of your upper level interview training, start writing a bunch of warrants, all of that stuff, because the warrants that you're doing in GD are usually quite simple. So simple search warrants, that kind of thing. I had a really good trainer, and he was like, I think you can do good things. So here, have a DNA warrant, which is pretty, like, you don't usually do that when you've got under 6 months service. And he had me doing one at under 6 months service. So that kind of stuff looked good, but you don't usually start doing any of that stuff until you get to a GI unit. So I took the drug unit first. I was like, whatever, I don't care. I'll get in there. There's going to be lots of warrants in there. There's going to be lots of source handling in there. There's going to be lots of all of these cool things that are going to lead to bigger things, bigger and better things when I move on. So I had a lot of fun. I did that for 2 years. It was kind of a lot of just quick hits. It was like a street level drug team. And so learned all the surveillance stuff and had a blast following people around. We were integrated with the city police unit there, and almost all of the guys from the city police that were on our unit were on their like SWAT teams. So we got to hit doors and go in and clear houses and do all that fun stuff. But the problem with drug work is like once you've done one or two of those files, you've kind of done them all. It really just wasn't where my passion was for policing. I was like, this is kind of boring and it's really dirty. Drug houses are dirty. This is just not what I want to do. So I called up staffing the one day and I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm happy to stay here as long as I need to stay here. I'm not going to complain about getting plain clothes for sure. But, is there any chance that there's a spot open in GIS? Like, that's definitely where I want to go to kind of get ready for major crimes, to really kind of take my career in the direction that I'd like it to go. And it turned out that they had some openings, and the new sergeant in there had been the old polygraph guy. And of course, I had been sending in my statements, over the years when I needed him to do a polygraph. And he was like, yes, she's an effective interviewer. I'd like her, please. So I ended up getting transferred up to GIS within like a couple, like 3 weeks of making that request, which was not something I had expected, but it was definitely a very good thing. So
See, that's the thing though, too. Like, I mean, oftentimes you just have to ask, right? Like, we just have to ask. And I think as women, we do ourselves a disservice because we're like, well, I don't really want to bother them. And like, well, I don't really want to ask. Like, fucking ask. What's the worst they can say? No? Okay. You still fucking do the same thing you were doing, right? But at least now you know. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. And you'll never get that one-off shot where like, yeah, actually, you know what? And I love too, your work is speaking for you, right? So like if you are a new officer, you're somebody that's new to this career, the shit you're doing that you think is boring, that you don't want to do, that's crappy paperwork, that sucks, and it's sucking the life out of you, people are looking at it. People are looking at it. People are reviewing it. It is going beyond you. People are taking note. If you can write a great report, people are taking note. For me, same thing. I was like the report writer. I was a very good report writer. And so anytime a major incident went, they would be like, please do the report, because it sounds so much better when it comes from you, which is like kind of shitty because I was like, I don't want to write your fucking report. But also like, okay, but then you go do the messy, gross stuff because like I'm good. I'll sit in the office and write this report. If you want to go deal with the shit stained whatever and bag it, okay. I'll trade that off.
So many
No
shit stains. Show me so many shit stains in this entire like area of profession. Hey, like it's like why?
I said that. I think I'd been in corrections like 2 or 3 years, and I literally was writing a report. And as I was writing it, I was like, never in my entire life did I think I would have to come up with such creative ways to say shit in a report, like feces, fecal matter, like, and then describe it like liquid, like there, you're like, and I'm just like, I went to university for this. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I remember once we were arresting a guy, he was on a warrant, and we ended up finding him in one of the local bars because somebody had called in that he was there. So we go in and they're like, oh, he's hiding in the bathroom. And it was like the middle of winter, right? So, I mean, community are wearing lots of different layers of clothes. They're trying to stay warm.
yeah.
So we go into the bathroom. He's the only one in there. He's in a stall with the door shut. And, my male coworker there kind of peeked his head in, can see that this guy's fully clothed. He's like, you're not fooling anybody. Come on out. And so we do the arrest. We get him to the detachment. And we're just kind of like taking off the different layers of clothes. And as we take off each layer, it just gets stinkier and stinkier and stinkier. This man has shit his pants down to his knees. And we were like, you were in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You were sitting on the toilet. What just happened? But he did have a lot of layers that I'm sure if it was an emergency, he wouldn't have been able to get off in time. Anyway.
I'm telling you, I know.
Rivers of shit.
Yes. Like, yeah, it is. It's literally, that's like, it's a shitty job.
Sure is.
Oh my gosh. So GIS, and then how long were you there before kind of making the jump? So, and I also love that they took the East Coaster and they're like, Saskatchewan is your new home. You are just going to bounce around Saskatchewan.
Northern Saskatchewan. Well, the issue is that they have trouble staffing Northern Saskatchewan. And so they do tend to get a lot of recruits up there. But my goal at that time, when I had my staffing interview, when I was training, they had sort of said, well, we can send you back east. At the time, my mom, she was having some issues, and I probably could have gotten a compassionate transfer back to Prince Edward Island at that time. And I was like, okay, I really don't want to do that. I'm a baby Mountie right now. I have no idea what I'm doing in policing. And I love PEI, and I'm about to transfer back there. We can talk about that in a little bit. But for learning how to police, that isn't where I wanted to start my career. I wanted to go to the busiest place. I wanted to go to the craziest, most violent place, because I wanted to get that experience. And that's what I told them. I was like, I don't want to go where nothing ever happens. I don't want to go to a Sleepy Hollow somewhere down south. I would like to go further north, because I know that that's going to give me the experience that I'd like to get. So that's where they sent me. So I kind of asked for it. I told them I didn't even really care which province or territory they sent me to. I think I asked for Dawson City first, because I've always had this like obsession with the Yukon. I've always wanted to go there.
Yes.
And of course, M Division Yukon was not open. So then I had like Alberta and Saskatchewan, and the only place I didn't really want to go was Manitoba. I'd heard just terrible things. So thankfully, they sent me to Saskatchewan. And I was there for about 10 years. And honestly, like it was great. I had such a great time. It was such a great place to start my career. I met so many incredible people, and like some of my best friends even today. So
That's awesome. So then when did you make your way to Edmonton? I guess back
so
to Edmonton.
yeah, that was in 2018. So I did GIS for about 3.5 years. And my corporal there, Ashley, is one of my best friends. She's not a corporal anymore. She's now an inspector in charge of major crimes in Saskatchewan. She was my boss there, and the two of us just had a blast. And she's definitely one of those bosses that really wants to develop all of her members. So she was a good one to have there, and gave us lots of opportunities. And the GIS unit in Prince Albert is incredibly busy. So we cover the penitentiary. I was kind of laughing when you were saying earlier about having to, write reports and make sure that all of your exhibit handling is on par. Like we would deal with that all the time, and had to come up with protocols and stuff to kind of help the SIOs and the CXs with everything when it came to stuff that was coming in, and ended up just having a really great relationship with everybody there. But then on top of that, we had like 30 of the busiest detachments that we also serviced, essentially, right? So we were in charge of the child abuse protocol. So basically any child abuse file that came in would have to come right through like our office. They, within a certain amount of time, they would have to kind of report the file to us. We'd review the file, put our investigative direction on it, and just make sure that it was compliant with the protocol, see if they needed any help with any child interviews, or help them plan a child interview if there were no interviews available, or if we for some reason couldn't come up and do it. Then we had, serious sexual assaults, aggravated assaults. I had an attempted murder, which technically was under the major crime umbrella, but the way it came in, I was asked by the major crime unit to go down to the hospital to see if this girl was going to live. She'd been stabbed like 17, 18 times. All of her pulse points had been slit, and we really weren't sure kind of what we were going to be running into. So we get there, figure out she's going to live. They're like, okay, well, you may as well just run with it. We're not going to deploy then if it looks like she's going to live. Well, in the course of that investigation, of course, we get very, very good evidence for attempted murder. At that point, we've already done a lot of the investigation, and the major crimes team is already deployed to something else. So they kind of just let us keep it, which was amazing for me, because obviously that was kind of right up my alley at that time. So that was definitely a big one that I worked on. We were able to get that guy convicted, which was good.
Excellent.
Yeah, we just had a lot of like really varied files there that were pretty serious. And then we would also get pulled into the major crime team if they got deployed. They would sort of ask for extra resources, and we get to go and work homicides with them. So it gave me a ton of experience. And then when it was getting to be about the time where I was going to be transferring out, I knew that the Regina MCU team had asked if I could go down there. They wanted me to go there, but I also had a bunch of other areas on my career preference list that we keep. And one of those areas was Edmonton, and they were kind of going through a bit of a restructure. They had a bunch of constable positions open, and Edmonton, like the K Division major crime teams, are just busy all the time. Like, I can't even, we could probably use another couple of teams at any given
Yeah.
time, right? Like we're going all the time. It's just go, go, go. So they asked me if I'd rather go to Edmonton, and I'm like, Regina, Edmonton. Yeah, I think I'll go to Edmonton. That would be cool. So I had to kind of do up a CV, send that all through, and then they approved the lateral transfer. And in 2018, I came back over to Edmonton.
So cool. Like you just had such a plethora of experience and just different, like you're saying, like you seem to have had, and I don't like the word lucky because I mean, I do kind of believe in it, but I believe the universe kind of guides us in ways, but you seem to have been in the right place at the right time for a lot of key things, which is awesome because it's
100%.
just
Yeah.
guided you to
And
kind of
I
exactly
do
where you're
consider
at.
myself, yeah, I do consider myself lucky, honestly. Like a lot of the conversations that I have with staffing, like it doesn't always happen like that, right? So it really was, a timing thing, and definitely put the work in and get the experience. But timing is half of everything, right? So I do definitely consider myself lucky to have the opportunities that I was able to get.
It's awesome. And so now with major crimes in Edmonton for the last 6 years, so you kind of touched on like a couple of the roles when you were kind of explaining the exhibitor role, but what is your role now within major crimes? Do you have like a set, like you're a lead investigator? Do you have a set, like, or are you just running with whatever comes through the door and it gets assigned similar to what was happening in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, we rotate roles. So essentially we work as part of, like, we have different teams, and you within your team, you're on call for a set number of days. Usually it's a week out of every four. And a lot of times we're asked to go on call more, or we volunteer to go on call more, just kind of depending on the call volume. If all of our first and second teams get called out, then we have an ad hoc team, and we're throwing people together kind of all over the place. But essentially you work with your team, and you're going to rotate roles within that team. So you'll have your command triangle, and typically at the start of your on-call week, you'll be like, these are the roles for the week. So you'll know who your TC is going to be, your team commander, your primary investigator, your file coordinator, your crime scene manager. So we just did, when I was the crime scene manager, I got to go to the scene and basically liaise with the command triangle and FIS and go to the autopsy and blah, 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 blah. And that's one of my favorite roles. It's something that I really enjoy doing. And sometimes
Why?
you're out task chasing. Why? They're just so interesting. You kind of go there and you see this scene, and it could be anything, right? Like
Mhm.
just a massive, I mean, it's the homicide unit, so it's like a
Yeah.
massive bloody mess. Well, you go in there and you have no idea what's happened, and then at the end of the day, or at the end of the 2 days, that you pretty well know exactly what's happened. There are a lot of situations, and of course I know Sandra touched on this when she had her episode with you, because she's a blood stain pattern analyst.
Mhm.
They can come in and they can usually tell you, well, we think it started here and then it went over
Mhm.
here. Like they can tell you so much stuff. It is so cool.
Mhm.
And same with autopsies, the pathologists can usually tell quite a bit from the evidence that they find there. I just find it really interesting piecing that together, and
Mhm.
to go from knowing absolutely nothing to saying, this is what the evidence shows has happened. And then you go back to the team and because for the most part, when you're the crime scene um, coordinator, you're not necessarily in those initial briefings because you're out on the scene. You're doing stuff
Mhm.
at the scene, and in the case where you have, if any of these homicides are happening on the reserve, much of the time, friends and family are usually like crowding around the scene, like outside
Mhm.
the area as well. So you're interacting with them as well, which is something that I think is really important. It's like we're sort
Mhm.
of their only real path to answers at that point.
Mhm.
So it's definitely a pretty important part of it all. But when you finally get back into that briefing situation, you have this big chunk of information, and then you can see how that fits into all of the witness information that they've
Mhm.
been gathering, the other teams have been gathering. And I find that so cool how everything can just kind of tie in together and you get a full picture.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Did you like puzzles when you were a kid?
I did, and I liked
Yeah.
reading a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I've heard that from multiple, because again, I was same thing. I was a little kid that wanted to become an RCMP at 7. I was like, that's the trajectory I'm going. And same thing for me. I like to put together little things. I like to be like, okay, well, how did this fit into here? And how does this, and how does it all come together? And what's the big picture? What's the big story that comes out of it? So I can totally see that. Yeah, very, very cool. And so then when So you said something about 2 days. So I know because there's the show out there, 48 Hours, also one of my favorite shows. But like, is that like, are we like actually putting a time frame on like within
No,
48 hours is now being passed off to somebody else, or it's just that like
no,
we really hope
no.
we have all our shit in 48 hours?
Yeah, the 2 days was really just, yeah, I just kind of threw that out there.
Okay. Yeah.
But we do front load, right? So essentially, you're going to throw all of your resources at that file, initially,
Mhm.
just to try and get as much information as you can as quickly as you can. And our typical deployments are usually 3 to 5 days. So with a scene, sometimes you can't finish it all in one day. Sometimes you got to go a couple of days. Sometimes you want to hold it a couple of days longer. It really depends on the file and kind of what the
Mhm.
specific circumstances are. Typically, as long as you have an articulation for it and enough scene security, you can hold it however long you need to, right? So
Mhm. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And yeah, you guys have been super busy this year. I mean, it's just gotten steady. I'm assuming for you, like you, after 6 years, you've seen just the call volume is just like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
yeah, my first year here was pretty quiet. And even the people in the unit were like, this never happens. We don't understand why it's so quiet. It was just kind of one of those years because you can get, peaks and valleys. But since then we've been
Mhm.
pretty consistent. And definitely our team this year specifically has just gotten hammered with files. And some of it is luck of the draw, right? Like you might skate on your on call and then the next week gets like 5 murders and they have
Yeah.
to, go and deal with that. Or you might get called out 2 or 3 times in your on-call week, and then the next people will skate, right? So it really just
Mhm.
depends. And sometimes you have busier years than others, and this has been a better one for our team. So
So are you seeing a trend of like there's more homicides happening like just in general? Like is that I mean there's obviously it's so hard I hate kind of talking trends and talking stats like that because there's so many other factors like the
mhm,
population is higher. So of course there's going to be more incidents, but are you seeing a
yeah.
higher homicide trend?
So I haven't really studied any of the stats for this year because I've been too busy doing other things.
Yeah.
But they do release those. They do release those, and I don't think so. Like I think we've been holding fairly steady
Hmm.
when we look at the numbers of homicides that we're taking in relation to everything else. It feels busier for our team this year just because just the luck of the draw. Again, we've just taken a lot of files this year.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't think overall it's necessarily trending up. We have had a couple of really like busy years over others, but
Hmm.
overall I think we're kind of in the same.
Yeah, just following trend. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to transition now. We've talked a lot about death and shit, but hey, let's transition over to awesome things like puppies and dogs. And I want to
Yeah.
know all about, so you are the fundraising director for Ned's Wish. I want to keep saying wishes, and I know it's not that. Ned's Wish. So tell me, I mean, I know what it is, but I want you to tell our listeners what Ned's Wish is, what they're doing, and how we can help because I want to help all the puppies. So fill
Yes, the
me in.
puppies are definitely in need of all of the snuggles and the help. So Ned's Wish is a national charity, and we support retired police and military working dogs across the country. And essentially, why they need support is because when they retire, they don't get a pension or any kind of money or aftercare the way that their human counterparts do. And that's not necessarily true in every case. There are a couple of notable cases like the Edmonton Police Service and a couple of other city police services that have like really robust foundations. They can actually do quite a bit for their dogs. But even in those cases, sometimes they don't necessarily have enough to cover like a big surgery, or some of the other big things that can come up. And it's not so much that they don't want to; they do, but we're all publicly funded agencies. There's only
Hmm.
so much to go around.
Yep.
Policing budgets have been slashed and slashed and slashed,
Hmm.
and they have to focus on the dogs that are working to keep
Yep.
those dogs safe and to keep them healthy and to keep them going. To
Hmm.
provide the service that they're providing. So what we do is we kind of step in to bridge the gap. We fundraise and we help to pay their vet bills. We pay 50% of prescription food. We pay for their medications, and we also help with rehoming now as well, where that's required. So they do typically stay with their handlers because
Hmm.
their handlers know them best.
Yeah.
But increasingly, in situations where that's not the case, they're coming to us for help, and we're assisting with the rehoming process. I have had two retired police dogs. I'm on my second guy now, and they are incredible animals. They're a lot, and you definitely have to be a dog lover. They're certainly not pets, but they're amazing. Like I don't think I'll ever have another kind of dog. I'm always going to have a space for my retired police dog here in my house now. So
yes. So I'm trying to like gather my thoughts because I have so many different questions, but so it's for all agencies, RCMP, like you did say like EPS and things like that, but like, any kind of police agency, RCMP, like that, those dogs that need that assistance are reaching out to you guys and being like, hey, Holy, like, is it the agency that's reaching out or is it the handler themselves sometimes?
It's the agency. So so we take on any law enforcement agency in Canada. That's RCMP. That's all of the city forces. We have Parks Canada. We have D&D. We're not quite able to take CBSA, but we'd like to go there eventually. So essentially it's the agency that contacts us. A lot of times it's the handler that will register the dog. And so basically the registration comes in, they'll just double check with the agency. Yes, is this dog a legitimate dog? Did it work? Is it, was it with your organization? It's now retired. Good, great. Then once they do all of that, the dog is enrolled in the program. If you take the dog to the vet, you pay your bills, then you submit your claim through NetSwish, and then we just pay directly to the owner. So whether that's the handler or whether that's a trusted family, that handler is found to take care of the dog.
Amazing. Like, I love it because so it's funny because I saw the poster in the Beaumont Rec Center because I was there when my kids were doing their Girl Guides. And of course, I'm just bored looking around, looking at all the things. And I was like, what is this? What is this police dog thing that I can see on here? And I read the poster and I was like, this is amazing. And then I found out that you were part of it. And I was like, guess who's coming on the podcast? Because I want to talk about this. So
and I think I had also put a message in our group chat about, hey, if anybody wants a police dog, like let me know.
Yes.
We'll put you on the list kind of thing.
Believe me, I am like, even though I told my children that we're not getting any more fucking pets, I'll probably put my name on the list, not gonna lie. not gonna lie.
They don't come up very often. But they do come up from time to time. So it is nice for us to have, kind of almost like a database of people to know what their situations are. And then it's always the handler that makes the decision. They know that dog best. There may be a lot of homes that wouldn't be good for that dog, but if we have, a good database of people, maybe that one person that dog needs would be on that list. Right. So it's definitely something that I'm really passionate about. And we actually are just now setting up our first sanctuary or rehoming facility. We have basically very experienced dog handlers that have agreed to let us build a bit of a kennel on their property. And they are going to be kind of almost like a decompression home. So I'm sure you can understand that a lot of times when these dogs retire, they're still pretty jacked up. They're dealing with a lot of operational stuff. They can get PTSD just like people can. And retirement is an extremely hard transition for a lot of them. And it's the reason that some of them can't stay with their handlers. So this kind of just gives them a place to go, settle in, decompress, and then we can get a proper assessment done on the dog in conjunction with the handler. And then when that dog gets rehomed, there's a much higher chance that it's going to stick, right?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Like watching their handler go to work and then being like, but why aren't I going? Like, why you're getting in the car?
Why does this new punk get to go? Like,
yeah, totally. Well, and again, another co-friend that we have, Erin Pipke, that's a drug dog handler with corrections, right? Same thing. Like she's on her third dog now, and like, I remember before Miley passed away, like Miley watching Zoe and you could just see her being like, fuck this dog, fuck this new fucking dog, right?
This is my life.
Well, especially because in their mind, they're not old, right? Like they're still, like we're the ones that are saying, well, you've reached your kind of peak and you're starting to, you're starting to decline. Your nose is not as good, or there's things. Or it's just, we've got to take you out of service. It's time for new dogs. Sometimes it's just the time is up. So I could totally see that. Them being like, I'm sorry, what the fuck is going on? Why are you getting in the car? Where are you going? Why am I not coming with you? Like after having done it for 4 to 5 years, that being their whole life. So I could definitely see the stress and the reactions from the dogs for sure. So how
Yeah.
did you find Ned's Wish? Like, obviously I think you probably knew of it from being in the community, but like what drew you specifically to this charity?
It's actually kind of a funny story. When I first joined the RCMP, I've been like a crazy dog lady just about my entire life. When I was little, I don't know if you remember that old show, Cats and Dog. It was like a really, really cheesy American show. It was like this cop and his son, and they had a dog named Rudy. My dad's name is Rudy. I loved this dog.
Yes.
I was like, this is what I want. I want a German Shepherd. I became obsessed with them. I actually had an RCMP German Shepherd sticker on my Shira Princess of Power lunchbox in grade 1. Um,
I
so when I
love
first joined up,
you.
oh yeah, I love that lunchbox. I have no idea where it is, and I will never forgive my parents for losing it. But in any case, yeah, when I first joined up, I kind of wanted to be a dog handler. So this is before the whole major crimes obsession started. But of course, I was up in Pelican Narrows. Our closest dog handler was 4 hours away. And when it comes to RCMP, if you're going to quarry, you kind of have to be available to go out with the dog guy, to go on training days, to go out on call outs. And I was never releasable for any of that because we were always short in our community and we were so busy. So I didn't really get to quarry. It was the same shit, different pile when I went over to La Loche. And of course, by that time, I started to become really, really interested in major crime. So I was like, well, that's okay. There's, a million and one jobs you can do in the RCMP. I had dogs of my own at the time, and I knew if you're going to start raising pups with the RCMP, they don't like you to have your own dogs over a certain size limit. And I wasn't getting rid of my dogs. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on major crime, and here we go. When I was in GIS in Prince Albert, I did start quarrying a little bit just to kind of see what would happen with that. But it was really not sustainable in a unit like GI because again, you're on call, you're getting called out, you're having to travel and go to different detachments. And then of course, it can take 5 to 7 years of quarrying and raising pups before they'll even entertain sending you on a course. So it's definitely kind of a longer term commitment. And at that point, with all of the opportunities coming up with major crime, I just kind of had to make a decision. And the decision was to go for major crime, which meant, I'm probably going to promote a major crime at some point, and I'm not going to be eligible for the dog program anymore because I won't be a constable. So I kind of made that decision, and I was kind of sad about it, but I was like, whatever, I still have all of these, awesome dogs in my personal life, and it's great. And then I get to Edmonton, and my sergeant on my new team in major crimes, we're sitting around talking about dogs, and he's like, oh, you should meet is Stacy Talbot. She's the president of this organization called Ned's Wish that she started based on some issues that she found she was having with the first retired police dog that she owned, which of course was Ned, who we're named after. I think she spent something crazy like $50,000 on diagnostics just to kind of figure out what was going on with this dog, and there was just nothing available. So she's like, this isn't right. These dogs have served their communities for however long. And of course she understood. She was in a managerial position with the RCMP. She definitely understood, why there wasn't any money in terms of, the public funds and all of that. But she's like, I need to do something to bridge this gap. And so of course she created Ned's Wish. So I send an email to Stacy. She's super excited to meet a fellow dog person, and I kind of give her my background and what I'm doing now, and the fact that I had to make this decision to do major crimes and I wasn't going to try and go do the dog unit anymore. And she's like, well, would you want to be on the list for a police dog? And I'm like, 100%, I would love to do that. So I sent her this big long email with like all of my information about these are the pets that I have at home. This is like, the amount of acreage I have. This is like what the dog would be expected to like, to accept, and just everything I could think of. And then a couple months later, it would have been in August of 2019, I get this text from her saying, hey, can you talk right now? It's kind of an emergency. And I was deployed up north, but I'm like, yeah, what's up? And she's like, we have a dog available. He needs a place to go within the next couple of days. Could you even just foster him? And I was with my ex at this point, who really didn't want to get another dog. But when I called him, he was like, well, you're probably just going to do it anyway, so you may as well just do what you want. And I'm like, okay, as long as you understand this means I'm getting the dog. Yeah. Like, I'm coming home with the dog.
Yeah.
It worked out. He was in Saskatchewan at that time. And this was my first guy, Brando. So it was kind of unfortunate for Brando because he had been reteamed a couple of times in his working career. And then when he was retired, he was given to this couple on a farm who really didn't know what to do with him. And then he got into some trouble because he was chewing things inappropriately because he didn't have a job. And they had him for about a year and then decided they couldn't handle him anymore. And then all of a sudden he finds himself in some random kennel at one of the dog guys' houses. And then he's in a van traveling to Alberta. Like he had no idea what was going on in his life or who was going to be taking care of him next, right? So I picked him up on my way back from that deployment, and he was a chunky little monkey. When I first got him, I was like, okay, that's the first thing we're going to do is get you a treadmill. And he came home and we clicked immediately. Like he was my heart dog, 100%. He was already 10 years old when I got him. But he settled in pretty well right away. It really only took him a couple of months, and like it's like he knew he was staying, right? So, and I had him until he was almost 13, and then we lost him. He had a bit some complications after brain cancer and some pneumonia and all that other stuff. And I'm still really sad about it, but
oh my God, I am sad too, because he sounds like he would just be like the sweetest little big pupper ever.
He was such a lap dog, at least with me. He didn't really like my ex very much, but
because he knew he was like, he didn't actually want me. This mom did though. She was like, fuck you, I'm bringing him home.
Yeah, he was like, oh, we're gonna be dicks to each other. I'm really good at that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, well, I'm glad it worked out though. And for his last couple of years, he got to live somewhere where he was loved and cherished and taken care of, and was probably living his best puppy life, which is great. So fundraising director. So what are you guys doing? Like, do you guys hold events? Do you do like, is there like, how can we help basically? What can I do? What can the listeners do to help?
We do tons. So most of our big stuff for the year is over now for this year. So we have a law enforcement first responder only golf tournament every June, and that's the memorial tournament for Corporal Jim Galloway, who is a dog handler that was killed in Spruce Grove. You probably know of him.
Yeah, I did my practicum with him at Sherwood Park RCMP.
Yeah. So we do that every June. It's usually the first week of June, the first weekend of June. And then we do a number of pop-up events kind of all over the place wherever we think we can get some traction. And then our other big fundraiser that we do is Heroes Run. It actually was just this past Saturday. So we do Heroes Run every year in honor of a dog that's been killed in the line of duty. This year we honored PSD Bingo out of the Toronto Police Service, who was shot and killed last summer. So we had our in-person run. It's a dog-friendly run. A 5 kilometer here in Edmonton. They did one in the GTA that Bingo's handler was able to attend. And we usually raise somewhere between like, $30,000 and $40,000. We haven't actually calculated all of our numbers yet, but I think we're going to be somewhere in between 30 to 35,000 this year, and we're hoping it's going to be bigger next year. So yeah, that's a big one. Definitely. I'll be sending you the website and all of that. You can always donate online. And then a lot of people do like third-party fundraisers. So they're like, oh, okay, I want to see if I can set up, whatever it is, like a bottle drive or like the kids usually do the bottle drives. We have people that do like cross-country biking and just get pledges and donations and all of that kind of stuff and then give it all to us. So we have a pretty active grassroots support base, I guess I'll say. And as we become more well-known, we're kind of getting more and more in. So I guess, how can people help? Go to the website, check out the dogs. We have bios of all of our dogs. They're all awesome. Look us up on socials. We're on Instagram and Facebook. I think we've got a TikTok account. I don't know how active that is right now, but we've kind of got it all. And if you follow us on socials, you'll kind of know where we're going to be in terms of where our pop-up tents are going to be. We go to all the dog trials. We're just kind of everywhere, just trying to spread the word. And usually we have our heroes with us when we have our pop-up tent, so you can snuggle a police dog.
I love it. And literally, as I'm thinking about this, because we're looking at doing a client appreciation event at Blue Line just in the next kind of month or so. And I was saying like, oh, I'd love to team up with someone, like let's do it for, let's do a fundraiser for a legacy place or, Wounded Warriors or things like that. And now I'm like, or let's bring the dogs and we'll do it for Ned's Wish, and then we can have puppy snuggles. So
exactly. I'll bring Haas. He loves snuggles.
See, yeah, okay. See, it was meant to be. It was meant to be for this podcast episode to come right now. This is
Yeah.
perfect. We're gonna talk off air. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, I'm glad. And like again, so listeners, if you have spare change, if you have if you are a dog lover and you want to donate, I like all the information will be in the show notes. We'll have it all in there. Pop over, throw what you can at it, come to an event. Again, if we can get this one organized, if I can get my shit together and we can get it organized in time, I'm going to definitely team up with Ned's Wish for something, and we're going to have them out at Blue Line. So watch for that. Because yeah, what an amazing initiative, and what a great way to honor, like you said, honor these member services, because they are members and they did serve, and they deserve to be taken care of, and they deserve to be treated well when their service is done, just like our human members. So I absolutely love that this is going on, and that you guys are trying to make this work, and trying to take care of these dogs. So thank you for that. Thank you for jumping in and volunteering and doing all the hard work on top of everything else that you do, because it's not like you're not busy or anything.
We have a really good team in Ned's Wish, so definitely not all just me.
Yeah. Well, and like, I mean, that's awesome too, right? Like, if you got the good team and everybody's working together and everybody is passionate about what they do, then it doesn't even seem like work. So that's amazing. Well, we are kind of running out of time, so I want to jump to our rapid fire questions, because I love asking them. They're like probably my favorite part of the podcast.
I'm going to panic and I'm not going to know what to say.
No, you'll be fine.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
They're super easy. Don't worry. You don't have to panic. Okay, but I'm gonna put a twist on the first one that I always ask. So it's all good. So the first one I always ask is, what is your favorite food or snack while you're on shift? So for you, I'm gonna add like when you're getting called out. But then I also want to know, okay, so you have a dog right now. What's the dog's name? You said
Hoss.
Hass.
Hoss. Hoss.
Okay, Hoss, like an old horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so what is his favorite snack too?
Oh God. Okay, well, Hoss will eat anything, like literally anything. He doesn't like he eats his own shit. So he does not care. He has EPI. It's a pancreatic insufficiency, so he doesn't usually eat anything but his food. But his favorite snack, if he's going to get anything, is usually like a dry beef liver. That's the one thing he can have without too much stomach upset.
Okay. And what about you? What dried beef liver are you eating when you're on
Not
call?
dried beef liver. Oh my God. Yeah, no. God, that stuff stinks. Okay, if I'm in the office, it's probably going to be mini chocolate bars or Werther's original candies. Those things are delicious, because that's always kind of what's in our little treat jar. If I'm on the road, it really depends. I really like Pringles, like those, just like the original Pringles. I do try to be healthy, especially on the road. I bring a lot of meal prep with me, and I do all of that, like good fun stuff. Oh God, see, I'm panicking. I can't think of anything. I get stuff all the time on the road.
That's all good though. I like it. The Pringles.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah, I'm a plain chip person too. My husband absolutely hates it. I like, when we go camping, I have like my regular chips, my regular salted chips, and then I get him all the gross flavors. He likes the jalapeno cheddar and the blah, 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 and I'm like, fucking gross. I don't want any of those. The dill pickle, barbecue, no thank you. And he's just like, and then he'll get mad because he'll eat all his chips, and then all that's left is my regular chips. And he's like, God, like, why would you even eat? It's just flavorless. I'm like, what are you talking about? It tastes like salt. It's delicious. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, I'm with you with that. Okay. This one I think you're gonna have a great answer for, because you've been so many cool places. What is the coolest location that you've ever worked at or been to on a call?
Oh, good Lord. There's too many. I don't even know. We went up to Fond du Lac once with a fly-in to help with it wasn't even a police investigation. It was Transport Canada investigation, a plane crash. And I'd never been up there before. So we kind of got up there and we got to see, amazingly, I think there was even only one casualty. But this plane was like squished like a little sardine can. Like I couldn't believe anybody had survived. But yeah, the majority of almost everybody survived. So that was pretty cool, I guess.
That is very, okay. So Fond du Lac, where is that? Like way north Saskatchewan?
Yeah, it's like kind of on the border of the Northwest Territories. It's right up there.
I clearly need to do my fucking geography lesson for Saskatchewan, because I know none of these places. I know none of these places.
It's super north. Yeah. super north.
Very good. And I bet it,
Yeah.
I bet
And
it was
I've always wanted
gorgeous.
to go far, far north with the RCMP, but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. So again, I was going to try and go to the Yukon before I decided to transfer to PEI instead. But haven't done it. So I'm still kind of holding like a relief stint in the back of my mind because I'd really like to go far north.
I love that. Okay, so and you've mentioned this a little bit. You're going back to PEI?
I am. I'm in the middle of a transfer right now. I just got the appraisal done on my house. It's going to be going up for sale right away. And then I'm moving across the country. I'm going to go police in PEI for a while.
What? Well, but we like you here.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you leaving us?
I know. It's kind of a long story. I've got a bunch of family back there and it's just sort of time to just go back and be a support for them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of something that came up rather quickly this past June. I originally was looking at transfers and promotions kind of west and north, and then there was a little bit of a course correction, and then I did a request to go home to PEI. So it's going to be a really big change. The population's way different there. The crime rates are way different there, which is, I mean, let's remember that's a good thing. It's a good thing to have a low crime rate. It means you're going to
Yeah.
have a nice place to live.
Yeah.
But in terms of how busy I've been in my career and the types of things I've done in my career, it's going to be an adjustment.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to have to find something new to get excited about. And I haven't figured out what that's going to be yet, but I've talked to a
And
lot of great people that I'm about to be working with when I go down there, and I'm pretty excited to get going.
and so you're going back to major crime, or you're going not back, but you're going.
No, I'm going to just general duty for right now. I think
Okay.
I'll be looking to get back into some kind of plain clothes once I get there. But of course, when you do requests like this, usually it's just they have to give you the first job that's available, so you don't expect to get anything real juicy like a good plain clothes, whatever. So I'll volunteer for whatever I can volunteer for, and I'll go back to patrol for a little bit, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. I haven't done that. Well, by the time I get there, probably almost 12 years. So I'm like, oh, good. I get to pull people over and like I might get in fights again. Like, oh, this is going to be great.
You're like,
I never
okay,
get to fight anymore.
back to basics, baby. Let's go.
Back to basics.
Oh, well, that's cool. And you know what? Like you said, I mean, the universe guides you in directions that you never know you needed to go to. So you never know what'll happen there. And another exciting adventure for you. And you get to be back on the East Coast where it's freaking gorgeous and beautiful, and the people are so kind and lovely
I'm
and
gonna go to a
nice.
lot of beaches. That's gonna be
Yeah.
great. Haas is gonna
Mhm.
see some salt water and he's probably gonna try and drink it, and then he's gonna cough and sputter, and I'm gonna laugh, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Well, that's amazing. I think, I mean, that's a great kind of way to end it. But you know what? I wish you all the best. All the luck in the world when you go back, and I'm sure that you'll do amazing things when you get there as well. But thank you for being on the show. Thank you for taking the time. I know it took us forever to get our schedules lined up, and you're on call right now. And I was like, please don't get called out. Please don't get called out. And then at the same time, I was like, but I can't say that because I know she wants to go. But please don't get called out because I really want you
Yeah.
on the show.
We already went out once this week. I was good with not getting called out again tonight. So it's all good. It's all good.
There you go. No, this has been great. I really appreciate it, Mel. So, any last words you want to give to our listeners before we sign off?
I think we've covered just about everything. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, like
Get
I
a
said,
police
guys,
dog.
yes, get a police dog. Get a police dog. Open your home to a beautiful police dog and donate to
Yeah.
Ned's Wish. Yes, I love that. That's great. Awesome. Well, it has been a slice. I hope you have an amazing rest of your evening.
You too.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.